I'm so happy you found Virago 24/7. If you're loving this podcast, please go to wherever you're listening and rate the show. 5 stars would be very much appreciated. I wouldn't mind a review as well. And also, please share this podcast with your friends. Hi, I am your host, Leonette Talley, and you are listening to Virago 24/7. Virago is Latin for female warrior, and 24/7 is for all day, every day. Virago 24/7 is a weekly podcast that brings diverse women together to talk about life and our experiences in this world. We share our views on self-love, mental health, marriage, children, friendships, and really anything that needs to be talked about. Here, you will find everyday growth, everyday healing with everyday warriors. Just give me my space to move. Cause it's my thoughts, what I want, and I want what I want. Hey everybody, it's gonna be a new show for me because normally I have women on telling their stories, and today I have a man. Hello. His name is TJ Ward, and he is a private investigator. And then I also have my sister on, Monica. She's been on some other shows, and I wanted her to come on to tell her story of being in a controlling relationship. And what TJ does is, he's a private investigator. So obviously when people separate, it's not on good terms. And so I guess I want him to tell what he does, how he started, and I want him to give us warning signs about what to look for in a controlling relationship. We can, and just kind of get into that, and then Monica can tell the story. So TJ, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I have been a private investigator for 38 years. And in conjunction with me being a private investigator, I stayed in law enforcement. I started in law enforcement in 1973. And I stayed in law enforcement as a reserve for over 30 years up until last year. And I was a captain over internal affairs for an agency here in Atlanta. But my investigative firm, I have been obviously very successful with, and I do work for over 600 law firms and 40 corporations. And I do civil cases along with criminal cases. I do criminal defense, and I also do plaintiff work. To give you an example, I do all the loss prevention for Applebee's. And last year I put over 16 Applebee's employees in jail for fraud, for credit card thefts, for thefts of money, and so on and so forth. And I don't really use the police for anything other than transporting them, because I issue and go take the warrants, and then I prepare investigative reports and submit it directly to the district attorney's office to be prosecuted. And it's good because the victim impact statement that goes out as part of an investigation with the district attorney's office becomes part of the file and part of the liability for the person that I arrest. And I incorporate my fees where the company had to hire me to conduct the investigation. So they end up getting their money back, and I get numerous amounts of checks in the mail going to Applebee's for restitution. So it's kind of a win-win situation for companies that hire me and do what I do. But I do, before 9/11, I had 90% of all the vendors in the airports. And I used to have shopping teams that used to go in and test employees across the country to see if they were stealing. I had 900 Eckerd drug stores before they went out of business, that I used to go in and test them, and to see if the checkpoint system, and to see if I would put a checkpoint sticker in my pocket. And when you open the checkpoint sticker up, it'll activate. And I would go up there and make a purchase with the merchandise and walk out the door, dressed sometimes in jeans, sometimes in a suit. And then we would see how that employee handles that theft. Mm-hmm. And I would write a report and send it back to loss prevention in the company.
Interesting.
Yes.
So I have a lot of women listeners, men listen too, but the bulk of my audience and listeners are females. So how much of your work is like private, like divorce related, or relationship?
Domestic cases. I work about 40% of my cases that I work are domestic related. I do, as a matter of fact, I sponsor the family law section for the Atlanta Bar. And so I go to the seminars and I meet all these divorce lawyers, and I do work for them, all the way from protective orders, serving protective orders to investigating husbands and wives, their backgrounds, and also conducting surveillances, putting GPSs on cars to follow and maintain their activity and what they're doing, and for starters. And I can use all this evidence that I use to testify in court for whoever hires me. And if there is activity of another woman or another man, I build a case against them and be able to utilize that for the end result of alimony or child support or whatever.
So most of your cases are women wanting to find out if they're having affairs within the marriage. Is that when a woman comes to you, what is it exactly that they're seeking?
Well, it just depends. It could be in the situation that we're about to talk to today. There may be abuse and there may be something that I need to look back. To give you an example, I had a lady call me yesterday that is going to rent a room here in Norcross, Georgia.
Okay.
And she wanted to know about this tenant that she was going to allow into her home to rent a room. And we went all the way back in to run a profile on him to find about employment. And I'm online with the Georgia Crime Information Center. So we ran a background on him, and the Social Security number was incorrect. I caught that.
Okay.
And then when we submitted to GCIC, it returned that he had been arrested in 2000 for child abuse, and I had a whole criminal history.
Really?
He was found guilty. So I submitted all these documents to her in order to make her.
So she had no idea that he had this?
None whatsoever.
Wow.
None whatsoever.
Okay.
So that's a background check. And sometimes I'm just, we'll take women hiring me right now, and I get hired by men to follow women also.
Okay.
But sometimes running background checks on spouses that they may think that they've known them all these years, and they really don't. And I find out that they've had 4 or 5 different girlfriends over the years, and I can go back and trace them and find out who they are, and they could be witnesses in the proceedings of this current divorce. And I might go back when there's somebody who's been married 3 or 4 times to go back and look and pull their divorce decrees from their previous relationships and find out there was abuse in their previous relationships, and end up going interviewing those former spouses and be able to utilize that information and testify to it in a hearing to what we found.
Okay. So I wanted to have Monica on because she was married and it was very difficult relationship. And looking from the outside, since I'm her sister, I was there as a support, but you can explain like what it was being in the marriage. And then after you guys separated, like what you found out about him and how TJ could have been helpful in that time, because, oh my gosh, it was a lot.
It was a lot. So it's kind of difficult to even know where to start. We met and we married quickly. That was probably error number 1. But I was in love, and he accepted me and he accepted my son, who I had from a previous relationship. And things were great. I got along well with his family. Things started to happen just slowly. I was kind of removed from family and friends, not really realizing it was happening until there was no one left. The only friend circle that I had were his friends. I got along well with his parents, so I didn't think anything was really wrong. I kind of just felt like, oh, well, my family doesn't like him, but this is who I'm choosing. And I'm married now, so he's my husband and I need to support him. And he kind of job hopped, created a business and it failed. And I think ultimately that's kind of when things started to get bad. I became the sole breadwinner, and I didn't see the affair happening. It was the husband of the mistress who contacted me initially and told me that my husband was sleeping with his wife. And then from then, that's when things just kind of spiraled out of control. Little things would start to happen with name calling and just being degrading, from my appearance to my scent to my being a mother and a stepmother, even as a wife, even though I, in my mind, was the perfect picture of a wife. I was very obedient. I cooked, I cleaned, I worked, I, did the laundry, did the yard work. I cleaned up after his hunting dogs, for goodness sakes. I did everything that in my mind was expected of a good spouse.
How long were you married?
Sure.
How long were you married?
I think we ended up separating just shy of 3 years.
And they had a son together.
We had a son, and when I found out about the affair, I confronted him, and he, of course, denied it at first, but then we talked about it and decided, okay, we'll try counseling. And he lied in counseling. And I was like, oh no, this is not going to work if you're lying in counseling.
Who was the woman? How does he know her? The one that he was having an affair with?
I don't know. I don't know if they knew each other from school. I don't know how they met.
I would have asked all the questions.
He wasn't forthcoming with the information. I think that I ended up finding one of her best friends or something, but then her best friend was, of course, that's her best friend. So she didn't like me at all. And from the bat was just very ugly. And I was just trying to find answers. My marriage is in turmoil. So I, of course, was just trying to find things out, and I just hit brick wall after brick wall after brick wall. And he would throw things in my face. We did it on your side of the bed. We did it here. We did it there. My daughter met her, very.
You could have found all of this stuff out, right, TJ? If she had known you, you would have had the answers right away.
Was he bringing her to your home?
Pardon me?
Was he bringing her to your home?
Yes.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And didn't you go to jail for him because of him? Or you were arrested?
So that I had drawn up separation paperwork. I had contacted a divorce attorney at first, and they basically told me that it wasn't going to be worth my money because we were married for under 5 years, and that I'd be paying more in attorney fees than what our belongings were worth. And did I really want to fight for a bed that we shared together when I could just go and buy a new one? Now, at that time, he had drained my bank account. I was left with 78 cents. And when I gave him the paperwork, he had me cornered in our hall closet. So he wouldn't let me out of the closet, but he was blocking my way to get out of the closet, had the door, to him closed. So it was maybe a 45-degree angle open, and I'm in the closet. And he wouldn't get out of my way, and he wouldn't let me out of the closet. And Maddox was little. Maddox was home. He was, 2.5, 3 years old at the time. And I started to get claustrophobic, and I was freaking out. And he was just, calling me every name in the book, just bitch and cunt. And, you nasty whore. And I mean, I was all of these things, but I didn't do anything, but I was all of these horrible, terrible things. And he's just yelling at me while I'm in this closet. And so I panic and I went to swing the door open, but I hit him with my left hand to get out of the doorway, and his nose started to bleed. Now, when that happened, he immediately wiped his nose, wiped blood on the walls, took pictures of himself, and called 911. And was like, that's it, bitch, you're going to jail, and you hit me, and, all of these nasty things. He, was sounding like a lawyer, like he knew all of the law, and I was going to jail because I struck him. He pushed me down in the hallway, and I remember Maddox standing over me saying, Mommy, are you okay? Are you okay, Mommy?
So the police showed up at your house?
There's more to the story. Yeah.
After I was pushed down in the hallway and my baby was there, I tried to run outside, and he followed me outside, and he pushed me to the ground in our front yard. And we lived in a cul-de-sac at the time. And he kicked me until the police came.
Wow. How long ago was this?
It's been a long time, but
you're still real emotionally tied to this. Okay.
Well,
have you gone to counseling or anything? Have you gone to a counselor? You got to get this out. Okay. You have to get it out. It's over with. Okay. So you were arrested for domestic violence.
Yes.
For simple battery.
Because she hit him first.
Did you go to court?
Yes. So, and in court, at this time, he was trying to make nice. So he came to court and he said that it was his fault and he had instigated it.
False imprisonment.
But it was in the state of Virginia, and Virginia is a Commonwealth state. And at that time, it was basically the Commonwealth of Virginia against me. And the Commonwealth of Virginia didn't want to hear what he had to say. I struck him, so I was in trouble. And whatever happened after that, I mean, I had pictures, I had bruises up and down my body, and it didn't matter.
Okay.
So I was ordered to take anger management classes. And I've never been in a fight in my life. I mean, I never even fought with Leonette.
She is not an aggressive person. Not me. I'll fight anybody. And I'm older and wiser, but in my day, I would just fight anybody. And she's not violent at all. Like, she doesn't hit people. She's very sweet and very calm, cool, and collected. That's not her nature at all.
Well, he committed a crime against you when he would not let you leave out of the closet. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's false imprisonment. Okay. Mm-hmm. So outside the fact that you hit me, you have a right to defend yourself to try to leave. But I understand the laws in Virginia, the common law. I know it's a little different than it would be here. Probably, at the very least, if this would have happened here, both of you would have went to jail. Then you would have sorted it out in front of the judge. But I understand. Today we have a lot of advantages. If you knew this abuse was going on, you probably, and hiring a private investigator would have been a good thing, because I would have put covert cameras in your house. Okay, not only to catch him bringing women into your house, but if there was abuse against you, it would be recorded. There's a lot of covert equipment now that you don't even know it's a camera. And there's a lot of things on the market right now. And outside of that, did you have a cell phone with you at the time and all too? I mean, you can record. Cell phones are great now. I mean, look what they're doing with the police now with cell phones on the street. Every time something goes wrong, you see a cell phone out. It's worse than being Japanese now. They used to. The Japanese always had a camera with them. Mm-hmm. And there used to be kind of a joke when they would travel or go go on trips and all, everything would be filmed. And but today there's a lot of advantage, and now the police have cameras on their bodies now, cameras in their cars, which they thought were a great thing until they started getting it used against them.
Mm-hmm.
And now, but I would have got a private investigator involved early on with you, and even though you were only married for 3 years, his abuse did not start with you. Okay, he had abusive problems before you.
Mm-hmm. Well, you found that out with the ex.
I find that out, yes.
Because
his daughter's mom, it was the same.
Right.
It's the same situation. And I guess she was provoked so much in the similar situation. She also was ordered to take anger management classes. He had just pushed her so far to where she had, just, I
would have interviewed her if you'd have hired me, and I would have probably recommended you got a protective order against him to get him removed from the house. Mm-hmm. An emergency hearing, even though you were married 3 years, you're not entitled to be abused.
Yeah.
Okay? It needs to stop from the beginning. There's nobody has the right to put their hands on you whatsoever. Okay?
I did end up getting an emergency protective order for 48 hours. From there, I had one. I can't remember the exact specifics, but he could only come or couldn't come within so many feet of me. I ended up getting an apartment and stuff, but he would drive by my apartment and he would call.
That's stalking. Mm-hmm. Okay, you take a TPO against him. If you could prove that he's doing that, they would incarcerate him without a bond. I have a case right now that is very, to say in detail. I have a lady who was married 25 years, and back in 1997 with her husband, he hit her over the head with a steel rod. He ended up going to prison, but she stayed with him. She stuck with him, and she was married all the way up until 2017 when she died in the hospital. And why she died was, he had a plan. He had a girlfriend on the side, a lady much younger than him, a Korean lady. And her grandson was living with them. The daughter hired me, and the grandson was living with him, and he was schizophrenic. So he was taking medication for schizophrenia, and this guy had drug problems also, and he was giving her, to keep her calm and keep her sedated, he was giving her his drugs and also giving her his drugs, and admitted to it when she got hospitalized and she died in the hospital. The police came in and did the whole room was a crime scene. And he admitted to a family member that he had been giving her drugs. And before she died, she told the daughter he did it.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. I have gotten involved in that case and just hired, and I'm pulling a notebook together right now to take to the DA to have him indicted for a death. And the girlfriend that he had, the younger Korean girl, he's now married to her, living in a marital home.
Oh, man.
So he had a plan.
Yeah.
And now she's gone. And but he has severe drug problems, and of course he got convicted of aggravated assault back in 1997 and went to prison for it. Mm-hmm. So he abused her, but all along for the past couple of years he's been giving her medication to keep her sedated and keep her under the influence, and it made her sick. Wow. And she died. And the medication he gave her was in her bloodstream in the autopsy. Mm-hmm. And he wouldn't allow the family members to be at the funeral and had her cremated.
Wow.
Okay. So
I mean, that's like narcissistic behavior.
Yes.
And I think that's what your ex, Monica, I don't want to say his name, but that's what he was. And even after they separated and were going through the divorce, or you guys were already divorced when you did when you guys were going to court for Maddox?
Yes.
And he was still making your life a living hell.
Well, you should have had a protective order put in place, and you probably could have got a permanent protective order, and for supervised visitation for him to be able to pick up your son in a remote area away from you so you wouldn't be abused anymore. I mean, you could show that. And if he's had previous relationships where there was abuse, you could have used that against him in court. Even though you had a short-term marriage and a relationship, you could have used all this because he had a plan. He was bringing women home to your home, and then turned around when he did abuse you. He turned it around to make it look like that you were the abuser, when in fact that you weren't. If you had things backed up with previous relationships where he abused other women, you could have used that against him in the course of your case.
And I'm sure his ex, the one that his mother's daughter, his daughter's mother, excuse me. I'm sure there was people before her too, right? Like it wasn't just the two of you. I can't even imagine. Do you know?
I don't know.
No.
One of the first things we would do is when we're doing a background on him, we would research. We would go back. We can run profiles on somebody, which will go back 25 years. So I'll be able to see other people's names, and I would check those jurisdictions to see if something was filed in those marriages also that you could use. We would get certified copies so you could utilize them in the course of your case to show that this is not an isolated situation. This has been going on with this woman, this woman, this woman, and you're just the continuation of what's happened. He's out of control in his life, and he tries to turn things around on you the same way he did when you were arrested. And when you were trying to defend yourself, when he was holding you in a closet, wouldn't let you leave, you pushed the door open and accidentally hit him in the nose, and then he turned around and used that as a tool for him to have you arrested.
Well, and it sounds obviously like he already knew. Like you said, he turned into a lawyer once that happened. So he's done it before, because how would you know that, oh, you're going to jail and now I'm going to take you outside in the front yard and start kicking your ass? That's pretty much what he did, because he knew that it was going to be on you. Was
there any neighbors that saw that he was kicking you when you were outside before the police got there?
If they did, they didn't come.
Well, see, that's something we again would have done.
You would have.
When we sat down and got your story, then we would have made plans to defend you and get you what you need, not only to go to court for the simple battery that you were charged with, but be prepared and gathering evidence to get this divorce filed in your behalf.
If you can go back, Monica, would you have try to hire, instead of a lawyer, a private investigator to get more stuff on him?
I mean, that if I had the funds to do so, well, I definitely would have. I wish I would have had
that chance. Yeah.
Normally, when you go see a lawyer and you sit down with him and start telling him things of this nature, they would probably refer you to get a private investigator involved before you hire them to be able to build the case and bring the evidence and then let him file, because his avenue and expertise is in the courtroom. And if we gather the information that's needed, and even me, I'm a 47-year veteran of law enforcement, so I'm very familiar with handling domestic calls, not only in the private sector, but as a government agent, and with all the domestic violence laws that are in place now for law enforcement, to be able to build this for you before you take it to him and he takes it into court.
So before we got on, Mike, you had asked me if she's codependent, and I couldn't answer that. I was just going to let you answer. Is that what you see in most women, that they're just codependent?
A lot of women are codependent and don't want to get out of a relationship. I will tell you, and my own mother was codependent with my father, and probably should have divorced my father 40 years ago. But my mother stuck with my father all the way to the day he took his last breath.
So was he abusive towards your mother?
Yes.
Physically or mentally?
Mentally and physically. But my dad stopped, because this is kind of an interesting story that I would tell you later, but my dad became a police officer after I did.
Really?
Yes. And my dad knew what the laws were, and from that point forward, there was no problems with abuse with my father, because my mother knew and my father knew what the limits were where he could take it, not get himself in trouble. And but he knew, because he was a police officer and he answered domestic calls, so he knew what the bottom line is. And domestic laws are in the favor of the person being abused now, because if there's any evidence of it, that you could go to jail. And if there's any physical evidence, furniture disrupted or broken, you can go to jail for that. That's
Have you
domestic violence.
have you encountered women abusing men?
Yes.
You have?
Yes. I've seen it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I've seen that happen also. You got to take the whole picture. I have seen women abuse men.
Yeah.
Okay. I've seen women to pick up something and smack you with it, or the same way. And so I've gotten hard on the other shoe on the other foot. And but I have seen women take advantage of men also and having affairs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have seen that. And the goodness here in the laws in the state of Georgia, if a woman gets caught committing adultery and all, her alimony is going to be out the window.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I get hired a good bit with women. And there's a lot of women. See, the problem is a lot of women that are well off and got husbands that make a good bit of money. They get bored. They have a lot of free time on their hands. And it's really easy to get attached to somebody else on the outside that's not your spouse. But you have the convenience of being financially stable by that person you live with. So you tolerate it. Okay, and then they tolerate it. But there's been instances I've been hired, by the man to follow the woman, and it's happened. And I followed them out of town. When you start seeing things changes in your marriage, when you start seeing money changes, when you start seeing hiding cell phones and not letting people see what's in there, now people do, they buy throwaway phones and then keep their cell phone for their everyday living, but they have another cell phone they keep in their car. And I've seen this. And then we have the advantage now, we can put trackers on cars, and it's legal in the state of Georgia to put a tracker on a car. And I can follow somebody and see where they are, and it makes my job a little bit easier because we don't have to play cat and mouse. I keep up with them, and I can see where they are, and I go there and do what I have to do. But you have to know the law, and see, I guess the advantage I can say I have, because I worked for many years to enforce the law, and my last opportunity in law enforcement for the last 7 years, I was an internal affairs commander. So I policed the police. When police officers made bad decisions, I investigated the case.
Okay.
And so I had a situation about 4 or 5 years ago when the chief of police came to me. We had a reserve officer that was tipping drug dealers off.
Really?
A police officer. So I incorporated the FBI, and he's in a federal penitentiary now.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
So he was telling the drug dealers what's going on.
Where the police were.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. So there's bad apples in every tree.
Yeah.
So I have another high-profile case right now in Grilla. Do you know where Grilla is? Next to St. Martin.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very, very high-profile. A lot of movie stars go there. And I had a couple that was, in fact, my client's brother that died. They hired me, but he was on The Young and Restless. He was on TV. He was a movie star. And he had married a woman who was a nurse who was 27 years older than him. So he got interested in going to medical school in California, and there's a branch of this school from California he was in. They moved to Anguilla and sold everything and moved there. Well, in 2018, they invited 2 other couples. They were from Oregon, and one of his friends from Oregon lived and was married in Seattle, Washington. So in New Year's Eve, 2018, they all got together in a grill. They were partying and having fun, and his friend from Seattle started getting sick, and so they ended up packing up and going back to the apartment, and they were doing drugs and all and partying and having a good time. Well, the one from Seattle that started getting sick went into cardiac arrest, and they couldn't revive him. My client's brother started getting sick also and ended up going into cardiac arrest, and he died also.
No way.
So the 4 survivors got taken into custody by law enforcement in Anguilla, and this happened in 2018. So as soon as the wife of my client got out of jail, the first thing she did was call the insurance company, because my client's brother had an insurance policy for $1.5 million. The very first thing, 20 minutes after she got out of custody of the police,
that's what she thought to do.
she called the insurance company. It gets better. She not only called the insurance company, but when she got the bodies from the autopsy, which is very strange too, because his friend from Seattle's autopsy is different. They all had drugs in their system, but the other guy had facial injuries and he was strangled. So something happened in an apartment, and the police also documented in their reports that I have that there was cocaine all over the apartment. And I am real surprised nobody got arrested. Nobody got arrested in this case. So she gets the bodies, and she had gotten a friend in California that called and said he would bring a private aircraft in to pick them up, which she didn't entertain. She ended up taking the 2 bodies. She wanted to get off the island as quick as she could before trouble arose, and went back through St. Martin. She had both the bodies cremated. Okay, so now the insurance company's not going to pay off because there's an open investigation and in Grillo. I get involved, and the wife files a lawsuit against the insurance company because they won't pay off. She has now filed motions with the courts in federal court in California to avoid law enforcement and me to see any of the depositions. Because there's evidence in the depositions that's going to point towards who's involved with how that MDA got in one of those drinks. These 2 guys drank out of the same cup that had MDA in it, and it killed them.
Wow, but it was meant for her husband, not the other guy.
I don't know who it was meant for.
Okay.
But 2 people
Were dead.
My client's brother and the guy from Seattle died, and both the bodies were cremated when they went back to go home to the U.S. And so this case is going on right now, and it's in federal court. And my client is involved in it because she was a beneficiary of in the life insurance policy, and the wife and the husband had made claims in the insurance policy that one of the beneficiaries was the niece, his niece. Well, he doesn't have a niece. She has a niece. Okay, so she would be the one that's paid out the most of the money, but you know where that money's going to go when she's paid out.
Yeah.
So there's it's in federal court right now, and it hasn't even been ruled on from the judge yet why to keep me out of the case and keep law enforcement out. They're trying to do that. The judge has not ruled on that yet, and but it's kind of interesting.
So you're involved with high cases.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
High profile case.
High profile. So for women that are obviously looking back, I'm sure, Monica, you would have looked at the warning signs and you would have done things differently. But once you're in an abusive relationship, how do you start the process of getting out? Because it is scary, especially if it's someone that's super controlling. And
well, first of all, what I recommend is for you to keep a diary every day of what's happening. Okay, things happen. Okay, what you tell me about money, there's no account for money. He's wanting to take trips over here and go that. He's not coming home when he's supposed to come home from work. He's out late. He's telling you he's got to do this, this, and this. And changes. There's a lot of changes from what your marriage was. Okay, so you got to keep up with it. You should start documenting. You got to document. You're not going to remember 6 months from now what happened today unless you document it. So when you start seeing a change of directions in your marriage, you start documenting. You have to keep a diary. That's the first thing I tell you to do. Then you start working your way back. When you start seeing things strange, what you just talked about, did you know that he was bringing women home to your home outside the fact of him telling you? Okay. You need to start looking at that. Okay. You need to see putting cameras in your house. Okay. That's the eye when you're not there. And then when you start seeing money's being spent and outside the fact of what your normal course of your marriage is, that's a sign. When you start seeing him not locking his phone down and you're not seeing his phone, he used to lay his phone down. Now he doesn't do that anymore. He keeps his phone locked up. Just these little things that's keeping you separated from his life other than what he wants you to see. Okay? You need to look at it. Just wake up. It happens. It's continuing to happen. It's happening today. It's going to happen tomorrow. But I can see from our conversation today that you still have a lot of emotional things, and I think that you need to get that to clear. I think you need to go talk to somebody about it and try to appease your own emotions about what's happened. It's over. You're out of it.
Yeah,
you
she's
don't
out
need to
of it.
live him. You got a life. You're still young. Move on. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't. That's not what this marriage is supposed to be about. Okay. And you deserve better. Okay.
Well, she's moved on, but why does it get you emotional? Because you have moved on, and
I don't know. I think it's a mix of things, you know. It's kind of like feeling like a failure, you know. Having a failed marriage is something that I never wanted to have or thought to have for myself, or, you know, for my son, to grow up like that without both parents. The fact that I didn't see, that I was so oblivious to all of the signs, you know, in retrospect, I probably should have seen things, you know. The isolation alone should have been a big clue for me. And then the anger and,
how did he isolate you from the family? Would he say things?
it was so tricky. It was really tricky. There would be little minor things that would happen, and it was like my you know, my parents were not supportive, or my parents, you know, made this kind of comment, so they're not really for us, kind of a thing. But, you know, they're still your parents, and, you know, I respect that. It was kind of like a
Planting seeds.
it's really difficult to explain, because it was like removing me from them, but then still making me feel like, you know, but they're okay. You know, they're just okay over there. You know, he didn't want me alone with my parents or with my relatives or friends. Anytime I wanted to go out, it was inevitable that there would be a fight before, so I wouldn't go.
Did he take any women around his family outside of you and they knew about?
Around his daughter, yes. As far as his parents, if he did, they didn't tell me. But yes, his daughter.
Have you had contact with him since all this has happened?
He's on his second marriage now since me.
Wow.
Wait, I didn't know that. He's been married twice after you?
Yes.
That should be a good sign for you.
This is the second marriage after me.
Okay.
That should be a big sign for you.
Yeah.
You should be happy and glad that you're out of this. Okay. He was not the
I know that it was the right thing, you know. Ultimately, I know that I'm where I'm supposed to be, and my husband now is wonderful, and we live a good life, and he is very kind and supportive, and, you know, has never even so much as yelled at me or said a sly, nasty word. It's just not the kind of relationship that we have. We're actually really good friends, so it makes it nice.
Have you talked to him about this?
I have. You know, he had kind of a bad first marriage as well, so I guess we have that in common. But I never really want to burden him, I guess, with that kind of stuff, or not that he would necessarily feel that it was a burden. It's just my thoughts, you know. I don't like to, I don't know, be a negative Nancy.
She likes to be sunshine and rainbows, and that's not healthy.
You got a little emotional when we started into this, and I would suggest that you talk to somebody. I mean, a professional. Okay.
Right.
Even though you got a good marriage now and so on and so forth, and you and your husband have shared about what happened in each of your previous relationship, you still have an emotional spot somewhere that you have got to get out of your system. And I think if you talk to somebody, even find you a female counselor, okay, find you or even a male counselor, and sit and talk to them about it and tell them where you are and why you're still getting emotion. See if you can get over that. You got to get this out of your system, okay? And where you know it wasn't your fault, it wasn't you, okay? What he's done isn't about you. It was about him. And just you telling us today that he's divorced since then twice. This is his second marriage. That should tell you something. That should really, really tell you something. And you'll probably find out if you want to explore just to find out who his other past relationships were. Make contact with him and find out.
His first, well, the ex-wife after me, she actually reached out to me. She and I are now friends.
Good.
So she shared a lot of things. She and him never had any children together, but they weren't married long either. But she, had some similar
Story.
emotional kind of thing.
You need to hear, then you'll know it wasn't about you.
Yeah.
It wasn't about you. It was about him. Okay. He's got a pattern. Okay.
Right.
And you were part of that pattern. This was not about you. Okay. And I'm happy that you have a good relationship now and happy with your husband, but you've got to get this little piece that's still affecting you emotionally out of your system. You have to do that. And I just suggested a couple of ways, and I think it'll be good for you.
Yeah. And also your son doesn't really see him anymore. The son that you have together, Maddox.
No.
Yeah.
No. Mm-mm. He, I think it was last Christmas when they decided they were.
How old is he now?
He's going to have a birthday tomorrow. He'll be 13.
Wow. I see that a lot. And my son, my oldest son, current wife, who he has, I got a grandson who's 8 years old, and she came to me the other day and said that her son, who I have a stepson too, his father has not seen him in many years, and she asked me to locate where he is, and he's paying child support through the system in Georgia. Mm-hmm. But she asked me to see if I could reach out and find out where he is, and because she wants to know. But his father, my stepson's father, he has not seen his father since he was 2 years old, mm-hmm. and he's now 14. Yeah. So I mean, I see it all the time, and
the crazy thing is that he was fighting so hard for custody, and he was making your lives just miserable, trying to get full custody. Like make her look like she's this horrible mother.
This wasn't about you, trust me.
Yeah.
From what just a little bit you told me, mm-hmm. if you would have hired me, we would have found out a lot of different things. And it's not cheap to hire me. Okay, I know that. And a lot of women that's in your situation doesn't have the money. Now I will tell you, I work 10 cases a year to Indigent Defense Council, and I help people like you. I'm gonna tell you a real quick story, and it's real funny. The deputy chief of Johns Creek Police Department contacted me, and he said, "I don't know that you can help me." And how he contacted, my mom passed away back in January, and his father works at the funeral home, and they know me for years. But he said, "I'm gonna have my son-in-law contact you and see if you can help me." Well, he contacted me, and he said, "I don't know if you can help me." He said, "I gave up my daughter when I was 16, and I'm 60 years old. When I was 16 years old, I had a baby. And I haven't heard from my daughter in 40 years. And I want to know where she is." So he gave me her name, what it was, and he gave me her date of birth. And 12 hours later, I went to the fire station in Johns Creek, and I said, "Here's your daughter's phone number, and here's her email." He contacted her. He contacted her and they spoke on the phone for 3 hours. And 2 weeks ago, she came here. First time, they showed me pictures.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yep, better. She had one request, that she meets me. So that Saturday, I took 2 bottles of champagne and went to his house. And you know, his current wife told me, she said, she said, you changed our entire life. She's staying here now. She's moving here.
Oh,
Yep.
Oh,
She's moving here.
lovely.
Yep. She's got an abusive husband. Okay. She has really a funny story, small world. She has an abusive husband last week he had drug problems. He sent pictures of cocaine to her and also told her and left a message that he was going to rip her head off if she didn't do A, B, C, and D. Well, I made contact with law enforcement up there where she's from. It was in Arkansas. And ironically, I worked a missing persons case in Little Rock, Arkansas 3 years ago. There was a girl that went missing, and I worked the case. I found her.
Okay.
And the detective that I spoke to in this county, this lady's from, worked with a detective that I know very well. So he's opening an investigation up right now, and they're going up there, the family's going up there on the 10th of this month to get all her personal facts. And the police are already arranged to meet them. And they're probably going to arrest him.
Really?
From what I sent him. This is evidence that I had that I passed on to law enforcement. The pictures of the drugs that he has in the house and his abusive behavior, they're probably going to, they said they were going to pull stuff. And this guy had been in jail and all in that county.
Wow.
For drugs. And he's on probation right now too. So I have just stepped, but this family was so appreciative of what I did for them. And they came to me and said, how much money we owe you? You know what I told them? Nothing.
That was sweet, TJ.
Yep.
That's nice.
I charged them nothing.
So you really help people out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did. If you go to my website, you'll see all the write-ups, the people that I've helped. And
what is your website? What is your website?
My website is tjwardpi.com.
Okay. And I'll put that information with the show notes. And that way, if people want to get a hold of you, if they need you for any
I do
reason.
work around the country, everywhere. And but it's the case I got in Anguilla. The family found me because I am the investigator in the disappearance of Natalie Holloway that went missing in Aruba. As a matter of fact, her anniversary is the 16th. It'll be 16 years on the 30th.
Wow,
this
I
month.
can't believe it's been that long.
Yeah. Vandersloot is in prison in Peru, who's suspected of Natalie's disappearance, and his father also. His father passed away in 2010. 2010, he extorted Natalie's mother for $25,000, and he's got extortion warrants right now. He's been indicted in Birmingham, but he left Aruba and went to Peru, met Stephanie Flores 5 years to the same day. Stephanie Flores found out about what happened in Aruba, and he killed Stephanie Flores 5 years the same day and fled. They got him, and he's in prison for 36 years. And it's my understanding that he just got an additional 18 years because he got caught having drugs being brought into the prison.
So her family hired you to look into him and his background and all that.
Try to find out.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I did a hour-long special last week with one Natalie Holloway with Natalie's father in the disappearance of Natalie Holloway, which we also did a TV show in 2017, 6-week miniseries. And last week we just recapped the miniseries, and because of the anniversary this month, and Nancy Grace is going to air the 1-hour presentation on Fox sometime this month.
That's wonderful. Well, I appreciate you being on my show. It's an honor.
Oh, you're very welcome, and I hope I gave you some input and try to help you resolve the balance of your last relationship in your own internal feelings, and to try to get it out. I mean, you really do. If you did one counseling session and was for an hour and were able to talk to somebody and get your feelings out to somebody that doesn't know you, that will give you input about what you can do to help you get over this.
I'll do it.
Thanks, Monica, for sharing your story. I love you so much.
Love you.
All right. Thank you so much, TJ.
Okay, you're very welcome. Have a good day.
I will leave you with this quote. She changed, but not overnight like in the books you read. Over years, slowly and painfully, sometimes brutally, but she did. Thank you so much for listening to Virago 24/7. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and please give us 5-star ratings. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Virago24_7 and on Facebook at Virago24/7. And just connect with us and share your story. We'd love to hear from you.